You know, it's all kind of weird, Doc. I mean, one minute I'm in my apartment, and I get up and I go walk outside, and like you just kind of disappeared, the building. Just like something imagination. I mean, you can't really explain it. And it happening when it doesn't happen. In the textbooks, they never tell you really how to remember millions of years. There's no way to say, well, recall a million years ago. Pretty much had to teach myself. This shit. Man, hear that sound? It's like a magnetic, it's like an electronic sound or something, really weird.
figured out that I might have been telling the truth about the whole crowd. I went to check out where the mirror was and couldn't find it. Sort of remember this moment that happened in 2004, but looking back it might have been 2003, which I'm missing about an entire year when my so-called appendix was up to see before. Bet it doesn't even exist. I mean, who rips out another's appendix in the first place? But if that's the truth, I must wonder what did happen. Maybe there was 3 of us. We went to check out our project out in the woods. Just making this up. The machine was out there. It was moving to our thoughts, but it's music. In the woods. That's something to do, I guess. Undercover AI scientist, so undercover was temping plans. If that did not happen, I would have been in the coma for about a year. Or some other horrible thing, because I don't know what is the miracle. As a young lady, a black man and me. Tyrone was a black man. He said this time, like Tyrone. Maybe PTSD. Aliens takes its alien form and jabs one in the side. Injects with its stuff, meds, in the hospital. This is in the apartment in the closet, on the floor, technicolored windows. We don't want to see it, and I do peace so it's cool. My cat still might need justice. And plus, it was never cool. Technicolored anything was never cool. The last place was, and you maybe have guessed it, another colored like snake or something. Thought about it from time to time, but never ran into any issues. Townward, maybe. But this one's a little bit different. It's technicolored. You'd be in a trance or something, answering and playing some sort of game, but it's hard to recall the game. Felt it one time, but I've not felt it in a couple of weeks. Plus, I simply just don't go into the closet. Like the power of the earth she carried as she was and asked, I told her to grab the force to continue to help me fight those who mock what is. So most likely she continues onward. She wanted to know. She thought I did. Black we see black. Do we have enough black? I could almost state that the mock was at the cat's talk per se. And if we knew they did, then how shall we know? While I'm here, I must try this. 2004, 2005, roundabouts, I find this woman. She picks me up hitchhiking. She begins to cry. She pulls her car over and begins to cry. She brings me to her Fred's house, still crying. Giant ship in memory, but not in fact, is picking the people up. Something of a stadium's over there, but I don't know what it is. I'm mad. People look like they're going somewhere. The beginning of this thought was so far back in my mind. Why was I digging? I don't recall 2 years of age. I don't know stuff. The memories of childhood were stars that moved. The stars were alive. My mind is actively evil. I've seen this lady cry. We call the hospital, waking up with tubes running outside my body. To make more of a situation given it could be the most. I walked over into the hospital and I asked that I walked out of the hospital and tried to find my way back to this fella's house. Cannot find it. I looked for a map, but I cannot find it. When I find the house, he did not recall I was there. It treats me strange. I attempt to grab my belongings, but they're not there. I believe he's lying about me. He begins to get mad when I'm mad. I leave and walk towards the stadium. I walk out back of this circular building, behind this in the woods. I think to search it out, but I want to smoke. I have a few. I smoke them. I think as I hear the sound, look for a way into the stadium. I find a way in. It's not a stadium. Little houses are there. I look around, nothing but woods. I walk back out, cannot figure out what happened to my stuff. Glitch keeps threatening. Cannot find my stuff. I fear I begin to hike through the woods to get out of the area. Cannot find a way out. People, they know something. They're all different. I must fake this. I do, and I play stupid. I play we can get along. They appear to agree. I'm so scared I don't admit it. You're reading, you're listening to this, and you're not that thing. They might not know that I've spoken about them. Well, the thing with remembering doing something time and then kind of existing, I mean, they're
it's sort of different. I mean, if you close your eyes at night and, you know, I mean, first off, you may, you know, recall doing something. You know, second off, you trust the fact that you did it. When you wake up in the morning, that you laid in bed, you don't wake up to think that you were out 8, 9, 10 hours playing around town. There's a bit of training that goes with the idea of you know, building huge works out there, you know, without the uh, uh, time. So, like, trusting you slept that night, that your body remained in bed all night, is the same as building something. You would, you know, set your ambition in place and kind of, you know, as it kind of appeared there, you would trust that you did it. But there's a bit of a training that seems to be, you know, a part of life itself, where, you know, you're allowed room in your mind to test if you built it, and there's, you know, a small trail, and like, for instance, sleeping at night, there's a small trail that gave you reason to think that you were in your bed for the entire night. So when I started putting stones up around my building, you know, I remember the beginnings, but once it got going, you know, I pretty much looked back, and it was sort of a dream in a sense to have set it up. Well, just the other day, I got a phone call. It was from a well-known sweepstakes. Something about $2.5 million and $5,000 for life. I was pretty happy. Um, I was writing down the information before I figured it might not, happen. And I really didn't think it would happen. I mean, it's not something you can really put in mind until the money's in the bank. So I didn't think it happened, but it could have happened. I mean, the amount of detail the fella went into. Afterwards, after the call, I was a bit discouraged, still checking to see if anybody was coming around. A couple days go by, and checking the mail, and there's nothing. So, I figured, it'd be the best to make believe out of the situation. It was kind of a suicidal situation, in a sense. And so I went outside and I got me a big old stone. Got a couple stones just to make sure that I was gonna get the lotto. Either way, you look at it, I was gonna get it. I put them in my apartment, the stones, and I set one on top of the other. And the stones, if looked at really carefully, it's got that kind of Mount Point shape, and it could be looked at as a little mini Mount Point, There's no reason not to think it's not Mount Point, somehow, some way of, quantum entanglement or something. There's no reason to think it's not the lotto, from a kind of a mortal perspective, but, you know, dreams are kind of money, I suppose, in a way. I mean, money and all power and being able to do what you want when you want to do it. I mean, it'd be sort of dreamlike. I mean, I think the more addicting part is being limited by the circumstances, and that limitation makes that kind of lust, that hope for something more, and that more in thought that's not is sort of addicting. So to see Mount Point from a small kind of miniature angle, it's more of a grown-up's world. Despite the fact that it's not the heavenly version, it just seems like a more grown-up world. So from this angle, I mean, there is no color coding back to a dream world. It's kind of it is what it is, and it's a fun life. Music can create a lot.
the vibrations or waves can create more or open more possibilities than ever thought possible. A long time ago, not according to the memory of, 40, 50 years, but kind of a memory, dreamlike memory. So in like a dreamlike pretend memory, I was out walking around. This was billions of years ago. Maybe it was on this planet, maybe it wasn't. I mean, I had enough to know that my apartment appearing in the middle of nowhere, that recollection was enough for me to see things a bit different. And when I went on giant walks looking for something that would explain the situation, I began to play music, whether it was singing or whistling or banging on the forest trees. And, time not being present, sometimes I forget to calculate how long I was playing for. It could have been days, weeks, or months. And, as I was going and the rhythm was flowing, things would start happening. It was like the forest would become alive and start, playing along with the rhythm. And, after time doing this, I picked up a sort of pattern to cause incredible things to happen. And one of those things was moving giant, large stones to the top of a mountain. It was almost a holy worship in a sense.
word in the forest is that maybe Tyrone's kids started creating sort of, yeah, I don't know what the proper word is, but, you know, I don't know at this point. I mean, I don't know, but I come across a few creatures every now and again. Most of the time they're friendly. Sometimes they're related somehow. I mean, there's really no, at this point, just being lost, there's no sound, logical, anything. I mean, the best way to go about something is to put my most friendly attitude on, put it most, the friendly, loving attitude first, and everybody just kind of family. I'm seeing that like right now. Is that a mountain lion in Vermont? I see drawing. I'm not. I think it's taking off. Might be good luck to have had my cat. I told myself if I saw one of those, it was probably trying to hang out or something. Cool with it. A little bit bigger than the little. At some point, in some of the civilizations, well, they got pretty beyond me. I mean, I failed to keep up with a lot of it. It just didn't make any sense. None of it did to actually record something that just doesn't make sense. But at some point, there was some people that came around, and they pretty much never saw anybody from, what I considered my tribe at the time, and, they went off and started, they were talking about something about a wall they had found, and they went off and, mastered this, machine to, get back home, which almost made sense. I mean, I could kind of see the logic of something, of time, at least time in their eyes. So, I helped them the best I could, and, kind of hoped that I would sort of find that time myself. So, kept track of them a bit.
At some point, I was invited to the building project of the city of Gone. And I met some of the people down there. But nobody said anything about, Tyrone, Jerome, though, I had speculation and wonders, but it was kind of out of the norm to talk about it. And the people were sort of fearful as well to kind of play with them in that way, so I stayed quiet. But I went down to the city of Gone, and they were happy to meet me and have me down there, and ended up building kind of this temple, on the outskirts of the city that they called, the Temple of Gone or Brendon's Temple, but it was mine. They built it for the purpose of me, so that was really awesome. But yeah, while I was there, they showed me some of the devices they made. Jack had seemed to make a time machine, and that was through the game that him and Rita played. Well, they played it and they taught it as well, and I didn't get in the time machine, but the word was that it worked, and it worked well, and they were just working on the breadth, the depth, and every angle possible. I mean, if you think about it, it's kind of a hard machine to create. But the way they created, the way they explained it was, through this game with sticks and stones. There's a pretend grid, 1,000 horizontal, 1,000 vertical. And if you worked your way horizontal to 10,000, each box would have a number that would go up. So if you're going horizontal and you have 10,000 boxes in that direction, you get on 105. That's 105 boxes horizontal. And then the next line would be the next 10,000, and the next line would be the next 10,000. Well, the way the game works is, you pick a square to do, and, you kind of child's play, and you draw a circle. Say you're going to do box 850. You draw a circle somewhere out in the woods, and you put the stone far away from the circle. You have to exactly 850 swings on that stone to get in the circle, no more, no less. And if you don't get it in the circle in that amount of stone taps, then you fail, and you got to try the 850 or whatnot to do it again. And they called it a sea glass, creating the sea glass, and there was a variety of laws that went into it, and the layers that went into it. But supposedly once complete, where characters could be designed, and more easily kind of a mechanism could go into place to kind of code the machine, and it kind of multiplied as it went. But Jack said that he went all over the world with that game. He would go in one direction, he wouldn't stop going in that direction once he started. Him and Rita being in Gone, or even in the Pairing Land, there was no time to stop anybody from building or creating anything. Suppose Jack got it from this wall he had found out in the woods. It's a small wall. He showed it to me. It was nothing big about. Kind of like a river wall, it could very well be the river. But most of what he showed me was not in the river. But
how many hits will it take to get in that circle? And you got a grid. You got to get it on the. Say I need 10. I'm gonna take 10 and get it in the circle. Too much or too little just won't work. And then pretty much try it again. I think that was 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. on the circle. And that pretty much is the game that, you know, Jack told me about. And, you know, I probably won't play it for a while. I mean, I know things that I can connect with, like baseball or football. It's worship in general, kind of making the great spirit above or whatnot. But this is, you know, a literal, you know, way for them to kind of document what they were doing. And it might just work.
What he showed me was not in the river,
they were going places.
he claimed to have, you know, withdrawn some of the information from the wall.
I don't doubt it. I mean, from the stuff I've experienced and just awareness and all, there's no reason to doubt that.
Once his sea glass was complete and things started multiplying, he claimed he could go all throughout time and all throughout hyperspace and see whatever he wanted to see in that machine. And all the people in the city believed him. They found solid evidence that he had been there, you know, throughout the entire stage of the appearing in the land. And logically it made sense. You know, there was just so much that started multiplying so quickly, you know, as far as houses and building and structures. You know, it was hard to tell, you know, what was and what wasn't part of the original appearing landscape. It almost started appearing as if something that I could remember, you know, being part of, you know, when I had been in the military.
Well, one day, I decided to go exploring. Just kind of explore something new. Places that I've never gone. Like west, pretty much. I always end up walking south. So I walk out west. And I start finding people. You know, and at some point, a little west of the Temple of Brendon. And met up with some people who knew the city had gone. They knew who it was. You know, a branch of it or something. Well, You know, they take me down to this place they call the Land of Gabriel. Guess the legend went, and they had told me about it when they built the Temple of Brendon, but I don't think it made as much of an impact as it did when put it the second time. I guess according to legend, people appeared west of the field of the game. It was just an eighth of a mile walk from where they appeared, the field of the game. There was a couple people I met and they led me down that way. Took me right to the field. You know, I know what to think about it. It had something sacred about it. You know, they had they never went across the field, the people who appeared there. There was no reason given why, they just stayed on the west side. I guess some of their children, offspring, went across the field. And that's where they built the city of God. But you know, once they got over to the other side, mostly nobody saw them again. And when they did, it was pretty much bloodshed. But according to the word of the forest and some of the people I came across, I mean, I guess Jack's time machine worked. The original people who appeared in the forest, I guess people say they went back home. Once they said that, I knew that I'd go talk to Jack. I mean, they were pretty sure he was a god. They were convinced he could do it. I had a very good reason to believe he could do it. So, I went and found him, and, you know, he had just come across this discovery down in the island of America about some buildings. He wasn't sure who put them up, how they got there. Actually, I mean, being a time traveler, he was quite positive that a lot of the things around were, you know, just not created by us. He was convinced people came through, other people at some point. Not just other people, I mean there was the other countries, continents around the world. And, you know, it started looking very familiar after a while. So I get up to, you know, Jack takes me down to those buildings down there, the island of America, and I get to digging through some of the work, and looking at. He wanted my opinion. He wanted to know what it was, and you know, I mean, there was nothing he needed as far as proof or scientific knowledge. He just wanted to know what it had to do with me, and just what it was. You know, I mean, he just wanted to put a name to it. So I sat there for a while digging through some paperwork, and I put some pieces together about the possibility that there was some possible magnetic disturbance, you know, billions of years prior. I mean, it can make sense, it doesn't have to make sense, but the more I put the pieces together, the more it made sense. There was no point in time that I was existing at. I was existing in multiple places, and that might be the hard thing about it all. You know, once you can put your finger on something, that something is pretty much nothing, and I think that's what makes reality so blurry when it comes to time travel, is that there is a location, and it's called no location, because you know, you'd be in many locations at one time, and that many locations makes it very, very fuzzy to recall what had happened. But I mean, you know, if that nothing of a blur did happen, then I had reason to believe that I was in a few places at the time of the magnetic disturbance.
That wasn't, you know, it'd be illegal to consider that something was when it wasn't. So, you know, none of it ever happened. I mean, we have that information already that, you know, we can make up a lot of stuff that happens and say it happens, but it really doesn't. It doesn't happen. You know, it only happens in fiction. To our minds does it happen. So according to the story, you know, once I get down to the buildings and I'm going through the paperwork, you know, I kind of see, you know, Jack was actually, you know, my sergeant at the time. The small amount of time that I was in the Army, he was my sergeant. So, you know, once we cleared that up, you know, I went and kind of took a nap and woke back up, and you know, none of it really ever happened. You know, I mean, it really never happened. You know, at all. And when I woke up, it's the legal, lawful ability to be here that says that everything back there was more of a myth than we could ever thought possible, and it was. So. As of, you know, right now, you know, I just made up some sort of psychotic adventure in dreamland,
you know, and in fact Jack is you know, my sergeant. Well, he's just above me, a couple ranks above me, and you know, I don't know, what do I say? You know, that there was something sitting there. There was definitely something sitting there, whether it was some sort of chemical in the air. I mean, something obviously would have provoked me to make this video. Something would have caused me to write the book. I mean, whether it was from the Bermuda Triangle, it could have been. It could have been, because I mean, it was about 20 years ago when I was in Miami, Florida, and you know, the highways are similar down south as they are up north, and you know, I just wouldn't have thought that, you know, such a, you know, maybe just blindsided me the idea that there could be, you know, something more to, you know, once I got closer to the ocean, there could be a different type of, you know, environment to breathe in, you know. So it could have caught me off guard, and I've gone over for a while now. But it wasn't just that you know, around that time, there was also a huge earthquake around that same time. There was, you know, Apophis, you know, a really close flyby of an asteroid floated by. So there was more of a magnetic disturbance than just the Bermuda Triangle. I mean, the world was kind of, you know, it was shaking a little bit, and I might have just felt that, and you know, tried to dig, you know, through the nothingness. And so in nothingness, I mean, what would be, you know, in nothing would be, you know, kind of like a dream, like no time, there's no consciousness, and you know, we're just left with a pure solution of what happened. We just rewrite it from scratch. We write what happened, and then we would, you know, take a few people and try to put the pieces together and see if that's what happened. And according to what I've, you know, found so far in some of my studies and just research and looking around, I mean, it's very possible that it could have happened. But if this part of life isn't there, the conscious part, the part that, you know, is seeking for power, I mean, it's in a fact that you know, it'd be dead in a sense. So if that part's not there, then our journey right now to find an answer is dead. And if that's dead, then you know, there's no way to give that information to something that's contrary. So it would matter very little to us if something happened, you know, that we just went on a billion-year journey through the woods. I mean, it'd be a small thing, it'd be a small dream. We were given everything needed to sustain ourselves, and, you know, and we just write it down, you know, and kind of, I mean, it very well could have happened, but like I said, it wasn't the consciousness that's here. So if it's not here, then it's really not us that went on that journey. You know, it was more of a dream journey than anything at all. You know, I've heard of stories, you know, for a while now, and I found some, you know, and I wouldn't think that it was as much of a dream, you know, and maybe it wasn't to them, but maybe it was. But a lot of people, when they explain these stories of some adventure, whether they were in hyperspace and they were being put in different times, it very well could be, you know, something that they're inventing as they go. Because, you know, if the lawman that's here didn't write the law for them to do that, then it's just not here. And so in fact, they would be kind of, you know, digging up memories. They wouldn't actually technically recall those memories, but they would be kind of inventing a new life. And when they invented that new life, you know, it would sort of make sense, but not make sense. And then we put the pieces together, and the pieces were, you know, in my mind, that, you know, that something happened. But like I said, I mean, it wasn't in the law that's written here. A lot happens, though. A lot happens. I remember thinking about these little organisms in this frozen cave, you know, whether organisms live in this type of environment. And when you think of these small, tiny organisms, you know, you wouldn't really think, well, that's me living in that cave somehow, you know. When you know, you hear the information, you wouldn't think, well, I'm somehow in some tiny, you know, existing in a frozen cave somewhere. It doesn't logically make sense. And so from that outlook, with that tiny, you know, frozen organism that's, you know, trying to live, you know, that small organ is that unconscious part of the brain, you know, that could have gone on a journey, you know, that just doesn't make any sense and not even logical. So we discount it, but, you know, I mean, it was a fun story, definitely a fun story, and I don't think this is ended. I don't think this solved anything, because, you know, we have voids that we try to fill, and that causes, but then it's not going to really stop from, you know, from this angle, this idea that, you know, that there's a Bermuda Triangle, and there's also, you know, an anomaly, and it's not the only anomaly. It's just not the anomaly that we were, you know, working on. It was just kind of a side thing that caught us off, and you know, it kind of threw us off. And as we're off, you know, the solution, you know, kind of the medicine to get back on track was kind of to just kind of, you know, be creative, write it all down, and then kind of fill that up, and then get out of there. But it's an amazing thought. It's truly amazing thought that there was lives, and there's people out there, you know, without time, and somebody can come up to you and say, hey, I'm you, do you remember me? You know, and start cheering up that, you know, you had died at some point, you know, and now, you know, you're back in reality, in a three-dimensional, tough world, and it's time to cheering up, that you're no longer dreaming in some weird paradise, you know, where anything and everything's possible. It can be very strange. But on, you know, on the other hand, it's also can be quite delightful to think that, you know, there's much more that's out there that we have yet to discover. Appreciate you watching the video. You know, I hope you take a look at the book. There's a lot of computer coding in there, and just maybe, you know, all in all, you know, when we look at it, you know,